Hi everybody, welcome to Live Blogger. I have combined all the videos in our fitness homepage design series into this single long video so that it's easy for you to follow. Now in this video, I'm going to show you how to design this homepage over here using Next.js. And we also have some animations over here. And if you scroll down, we can see that we have these horror effects and animations. And we have built this using Next.js, ShadCN and motion.dev for the animation. And we also have a dark mode over here. So if I scroll down, we can see that our complete website is now in the dark mode. And this is also completely responsive. So this is how it looks on smaller screens. And we also have this menu icon on smaller screens. So we're going to design this completely from scratch using Next.js. And in the end, I'll also show you how to deploy this website for free. So let's get started. Now here I have created this folder called Fitness Homepage and I just opened it with VS Code. Now let's open the terminal. Now if you're completely new to Next.js, you can watch the previous video I created on creating a simple project using Next.js. I will leave the link in the description of this video. So here, to create our Next.js project, let's go ahead and type npx create next app at latest. And since I want to create it inside the same folder, I'll just type dot and press enter. And here for these options, let's go ahead and select yes for TypeScript and yes for ESLint. And we'll also select Tailwind CSS and we will select no for source directory. We'll also use the app router and we'll also use TurboPack, and we want to customize the import alias. So let's select no. And here we can see our Next.js project was created. So I'll just open this by typing npm run dev. And let's open this link, localhost 3000. And this is our Next.js project. And this is the default design that comes with every Next.js project. So let's go back. Let's open a new terminal. So I'll just click on this plus icon. Now here we will install ShadCN. So ShadCN is basically a component library for Next.js. So this is the official website of ShadCN. So here we can see that these are all the different components that they have in ShadCN. So we can reuse all of these, and all this code will be added to our project. So we can customize it to our needs. So let's go ahead and install ShadCN. So for that, we can just go over here to installation and Next.js. And here we can see we have this command npx ShadCN at latest init. So I'll just copy this and let's install ShadCN. And here we can see there are some options. I'll just select neutral. And with that, we have ShadCN installed in our project. Now to test whether ShadCN is actually installed, let's go ahead and use the button from ShadCN. So here in the app directory, I'll just go to the page.tsx file and I'll just delete all this code inside the div. And I'll just use a button from ShadCN. So for that, let's go ahead and add the button. So we can just type npx ShadCN at latest add button. And let's press enter. And with that, button has been added to our project. So if we go over here to components and UI, so in the components we have this UI folder, and in that we have the button. So this is the code for the button, and we can go ahead and make changes to all of this. So let's go ahead and use this button and let's see whether it works. So here inside this div, I'll just go ahead and create a button and let's import it from components UI button, and let's tap test. Let's go back to our website. And here we have the button and the styles are not being applied. So let's go ahead and reload our server. So let's go back over here and I'll just press Ctrl+C to stop the server, and let's tap npm run dev. Now let's go back to our website and reload. And now we can see that the button is having the correct styling. So we have ShadCN installed successfully. Right, now let's go ahead and start with the Navbar. So let's go back to our source code, and here I'll just remove this button code from here, and for this div, I'll just add a basic CSS. Well, let's just go ahead and change this to a main, and here just add some CSS. So I'll just type class name, and let's type minimum height of screen. So it will have the minimum height set to 100 viewport height. So this is basically Tailwind CSS code. So let's select this. And now first of all, we need to add the navbar. So I'll just go ahead and in the components, let's create a new file called navbar.tsx, and here we need to type export default function navbar, and here we need to return some JSX. So it is basically just like HTML. So I'll just go ahead and create a nav tag, and let's type navbar over here. Let's go back to our page.tsx file, and let's import the navbar over here. So I'll just type navbar, and let's import it from components navbar. So now if you go back to our website, here we can see that the navbar is displayed. Now before starting with the navbar, let's go ahead and go to the layout.tsx file, and let's add the fonts that we need. So in Next.js, we can directly go ahead and import fonts from Google Fonts. So here we need to just add the name of the fonts. So let's go ahead and change these to Inter and another font called Oswald. And now we need to change these names over here. So let's change this to Inter. And then for the font variable, let's change this to font Inter. And here for the other font, let's change the name to Oswald. And here also let's change this to Oswald. And here let's tap Inter. And for the variable, let's change this to font Oswald. And I'm going to use these fonts over here down in the body. So here let's tap Inter and Oswald. So in this way, we can use different fonts in our Next.js project. Let's also change the title. So here for the title, let's go ahead and type Fit Pro, fitness, transform your body, transform your life. And let's also change the description. I'll just add some basic description over here. So I have added this basic description. Right now we need to use these font variables inside our globals.css file. So let's go to the globals.css file, and here are all the variables that we have. Most of these have been added by ShadCN. So here let's take a look at the font. So here we can see we have font sans and font mono. Now here let's change the font sans to var font inter, which is a variable that we added in our layout file. So here we can see font inter. And let's change the font mono name to font heading. So here I'll just type font Oswald. So now we can use these fonts by just typing font sans and font heading. Right now let's start with the navbar. So let's go to the components folder and in the navbar file. First of all, we need to add this logo. So I'll just go ahead and create a div in here. And for this div, let's go ahead and type class name. Let's type max width of 7XL. Let's type MX auto to bring it to the center horizontally. Let's add a padding left and right of 4. And for screens greater than smartphones, let's type SM colon. Let's type padding left and right of 6. So this is how you add breakpoints in Tailwind CSS. You can just add SM colon and add the styles, and it will be added to the screens greater than this size over here. So this is basically small, which is smartphone. And for larger screens, let's go ahead and type PX of 8, padding left and right of 8. Now for the nav element also, let's add some classes. So let's type class name of fixed. It'll be fixed to the top. Even if you scroll down, let's set the top to 0, left to 0, and right to 0 to bring it to the center, and Z50 so that it is above the other elements. So it is basically the Z index. And let's type BG background. So background is basically a variable. So if you go to the globals.css file, here we can see we have this color background. And if you scroll down, here in the root, we have the background. So we need to use this variable over here, and we'll also change the color of most of these variables. So here let's type BG background, and let's also type /95, which is basically the opacity. Let's also add a backdrop blur MD. So it will add a slight blur. Let's also add a border bottom, and let's type border for the border color. This is also a variable for the color. And let's type transition colors, duration 300. So this is basically for when we change the theme to dark and light modes, we need to smoothly change the colors. Right now in this div, let's go ahead and create another div for both the elements. So in this, we will have the logo on the left side and these menu items in the center and the button on the right side. So for the logo, let's create a div, and here let's type H1 and let's type Fit Pro. So here we can see that the logo is being displayed. Let's also add some styles. So here for this div, let's type class name. Let's set it to display flex and justify between so that all the elements are spaced correctly. So here we can see we have the exact amount of space between these 3 different elements. And after that, let's also type items center to bring it to the center vertically. And let's set the height to 16. And this is how it looks. Now for the logo, let's go ahead and add some classes. So let's type class name and let's type text 2XL for a larger text, and let's type font black. So this is basically the font weight. And let's type font heading. So this is the heading font, which is basically Oswald that we selected, and let's tap text primary. So this is the color. So now if we go back, this is how it looks. Now we need to change the primary color to our brand color. So for that, let's go to the globals.css file, and here let's scroll down, and here we have the primary color. So let's change the value of this. Right now this is basically black color. So let's change this to 0.5771, 0.2151, 27.32. So this is basically the red color over here. And let's copy this and add it to the dark mode as well. So we'll have the same color for the dark mode as well. So here, let's change this to our new color. And now if we go back, here we can see we have the correct color for the logo. Right now, the next thing we will add is the list of menu items. So let's go back. Now we will add all the menu items inside a separate file so that we can change it easily later. So let's go to the lib folder, and let's create a new file called constants.ts. And let's go ahead and tap export const. Let's call it nav items. And let's set it equal to an array of objects. So here for the first one, let's type name. Let's set it to home. Then we'll have the href. Let's set it to hash. Let's duplicate this. And for the second one, let's type programs. I'll just keep hash for now. And here let's type about. And here let's type pricing. And let's also type contact. And let's also add comma after each of these. Right now we can use these nav items throughout our website. So let's go to the navbar.tsx file. So let's go outside this div for the logo, and here I'll just add a comment. I'll just type desktop navigation. Here I'll just type logo, and let's create a div, and in this div we will first of all add some classes. I'll just type hidden for smaller screens, and for medium or larger screens let's set it to display of block. So in here let's create another div. Let's add some class names over here. So let's type display of flex, items baseline, so it will basically align items to the bottom, and let's type space x8, so it will have 8 units of spacing between the elements. Now in this, let's go ahead and loop through all these nav items inside the constants file. So since we are using JavaScript expression over here, we need to type curly braces, and here we'll just type nav items, and we'll just import it from lib constants. Let's type dot map, so we'll use map to loop through all the items, and I'll just call each of the items item, and I'll just add parentheses to return it directly. So we'll just return a link for each of the items. Now in Next.js you have a link tag, so let's use that. So we can just import it from next link, and in this link let's add an href, and let's set it to item, which is each of these nav items, and in that we have href. So here we can see we have href and name. So let's type href over here. And for each of the items inside a map, we also need to have a key. So here let's add a key. Let's set the key to the name because the name is basically unique. So let's type item.name. And here in the link, we need to add item.name. So it will display the nav items as links. So here we can see we have all these nav items displayed over here. Now let's add some classes to the link. So let's type class name. Let's type text foreground, which is a color. And when you hover over this, we need to change the text to text primary. Let's type padding left and right of 3 and padding top and bottom of 2. Let's type text small for the size, and for the weight let's type font medium. Let's type transition colors and duration of 300. So now if we go back, here we can see we have all the elements displayed over here, and if I hover over this, we can see that the color also changes. Now the last thing we will add in this video is this button. So for that, let's go back over here. Let's go outside this division, which is the desktop navigation, and let's type CTA over here for the comment, and here let's create a div, and we will hide it by default on smaller screens, and for medium or larger let's type flex, and let's type items center to bring it to the center vertically, and let's type space x of 4 for space between the elements. And now let's use the button from ShadCN. So let's type button, and let's import it from UI button, and let's type join now. Let's go back, and here we can see we have the button being displayed over here. Now for the font, let's add a semi-bold weight. So here for the button, let's type class name. Let's type font semi-bold, and this is how it looks. So with that, we have completed creating the navbar of our website. This is our source code, and if we go back to our original design, we can see that when we reload the page, we can see that we have this animation, and for this we're going to use a library called motion.dev. So you can just go to this website called motion.dev, and you can find the instructions on installing it. So if you just go to React, here we can see that we can just type npm install motion, So let's go back to our source code. Let's type npm I motion. You can also type install and let's press enter. And with that, motion has been installed into our project. Right now, let's go ahead and create a component for the hero section. So here in the components folder, let's create a new file called hero.tsx. And like always, let's go ahead and type export default function and let's call it hero. And let's return a div for now and let's type hero section. And let's import this in our home page. So here we can see we have the page.tsx file. So let's open that, and here after the navbar, let's go ahead and type hero and let's import it from components hero. So now let's go back to our website, and we cannot see the text because it is behind this navbar. So if we go back to our hero component and if we just add some padding top, so let's type class name pt of 24. And now if you go back, here we can see that we have the hero section being displayed over here. So now let's go ahead and start styling the hero section. So I'll just delete the div and let's create a section. So let's create a div for that, and in that we'll have an image tag. So let's use the image tag from Next.js. So you can just type image and let's import it from next image. Now this image tag will give us some more optimization for the images. So here let's go ahead and set the source. Now here in the public folder, I have added some images. So here we can see we have an image called fitnesshero.jpeg, and we're going to use this in our design. So here in the source, we can just directly type /fitnesshero.jpeg. And let's also add some classes over here for the section and the div. So for the section, let's type class name. Let's set the height to screen, which is 100 viewport height. Let's set the position to relative so that we can position the image absolutely so that it is spanned across the whole hero section. And then let's add some more classes. Let's type display of flex, items center, and justify center. So this will bring the content to the center horizontally and vertically. Let's also type overflow of hidden so that anything outside this section will not be displayed. So let's also add a padding top of 16 because of the navbar. And now for this div of the image, let's go ahead and add some classes. So let's type class name. Let's set it to absolute. And let's type inset 0 so that the top, left, right, and bottom positions are set to 0. But now for the image, we also need to add an alt. So let's set the alt to fitness background. And we also need to add width and height for the image tag. And for that, we can just type fill so that it will fill 100% of the width and the height of the parent. And let's also add class name of object fit to cover. So let's type object cover. And let's also type object center so that the center of the image is displayed. And now if you go back to our website, here we can see that the image is being displayed. Now we also need to add an overlay, this dark overlay over the image so that we can see this text clearly. So for that, let's create a div inside here. And let's add some class names. So let's type class name of absolute, inset of 0, bg black 50. So this will set the background color to black, and 50 is the opacity. So now if you save this, if you go back, here we can see that we have this dark overlay over the image. And if I just set the opacity to, for example, 90, this is how the image looks. So let's set it back to 50. All right, now let's add the content. So we have this heading, we have this text, and we have these two buttons and this element over here. So let's go back, and here, let's go outside this div. Let's create another div. Now in this, we'll have another div, and in the div, we will have an h1, and here we just type transform your body. And let's add a span because we need to add a different color for the next text. So here in the span, let's go ahead and type transform your life. Now here for the main div, let's also add class names. So let's type relative so that we can add a z of a higher value. So now this text will be displayed on top of the image. So here we can see that the text is being displayed over here. If you don't add this, then the text won't be displayed. It'll be behind the image. So here, let's also set the text color to white. Let's also type text center and padding left and right of 4. And let's set the max width to 4 XL. And here we can see our text is being displayed over here. Now for the H1, let's add some classes. So here, let's type class name, text 5 XL for a larger text. And for medium or larger screens, let's type text 7 XL and font black for the font weight, font heading, which is the Oswald font, and margin bottom of 6, and leading tight so that we have the correct line height. So this is the text. Now for the text below, we need to add a different color. So we have already set the primary color. So we can just simply type class name text primary. So this will add the correct color for our text. Now below the text, we need to add this paragraph. So I'll just copy this. Let's go back and here let's create a paragraph. Let's type class name and let's paste it over here, and let's type class name text Excel, and let's set the margin bottom to 8, font weight to light, leading relaxed for a higher line height, and max width of 3XL. And let's go back. This is how it looks. I think we can increase the font size on larger screens. So here, let's go ahead and type MD, medium or larger, and let's type text to Excel. So this is how it looks. Right now, let's add these two buttons over here. So for that, let's go back. Let's go outside this paragraph. Let's create a div, and let's use the button from ShadCN. So we can import it from UI button. And here let's type start free trial. Let's create one more button, and here we need to type view plans. Now for the buttons, let's set the size to large. We will do the same for this one, size of large. And for the second button, let's set the variant to outlined. So let's type variant, and here let's type outline. Now let's also add some gap between these buttons. So here for the div, let's type class name. Let's type flex, and let's type flex call for smaller screens. And for larger screens, let's type flex row. Let's add a gap of 4. Let's type justify center. So this is how it looks on larger screens, and on smaller screens, this is how it will look. Now I think the line height of this is not correct, so we need to make it even tighter. So let's go back over here to the H1, and here let's type leading tighter. So now the line height seems to be correct. Right now for the buttons, let's go ahead and type class name BG primary for the color, and hover. When you hover over this, we need to change the color to BG primary 90. So we can see this is how it looks. And let's set the text size to large, and let's type font semi bold. And when you hover over this, we can see that we have this transform, the scale changes. So for that, let's go ahead and type transition transform, duration of 300 milliseconds. And when you hover over this, we need to change the scale to 105. Now let's add almost the same styling to this button as well. So let's type class name. Let's type BG transparent, and let's copy these styles from here, and let's paste it over here. And I think we also need to add some more padding left and right for these buttons. So here let's go ahead and type padding left and right, which is PX, and let's set it to 8. Let's do the same for this button, PX 8. And with that, we have styled our buttons. Now I don't think this paragraph is centered correctly, so let's go back. And for the P tag, let's also type MX auto. And now it is exactly in the center. And the last thing we need to add is this element over here. So for that, let's go back and let's go below this div over here. And here let's go ahead and create a scroll indicator. So I'll just add a comment, scroll indicator. Let's create a div, and for this div, let's go ahead and add a class name. Let's type absolute for the position. Let's type bottom of 8, left of half, and now it will start from the center, but we also need to bring it to the center exactly. So for that, we need to type minus translate x half, and let's also add an animation. So let's type animate bounce. So this is a built-in animation in Tailwind CSS. And this div, let's create another div, and let's type class name. Let's set the width to 6. Let's set the height to 10. Let's type border of 2, border color to primary foreground, rounded full, and flex and justify center. So this is our element. We also need to add a line inside this. So for that, let's go ahead and create another div, and let's add some class names over here. So let's type class name of width 1, height of 3, background of primary foreground. Let's type rounded full, margin top of 2, and let's add animate pulse. So here we can see we have this animation. Right now, the last thing we need to do is add the animation for all the elements. So if we go back to the original website and if I reload this page, we can see that we have this animation. So for that, let's go back over here and we need to change the elements that we need to animate into a motion tag. So first of all, let's import motion over here. So let's tab import asterisk as motion from motion React client. And here for this div, which contains the heading, the paragraph, and the buttons, let's go ahead and change this into a motion.dev, and we need to end the tag over here. And then we need to add the initial state, the animate state, and also transition. So let's do that. Let's tap initial. So initially what we need to do is set the opacity to 0, and we need to set the Y to 24, so it will come up from the bottom. So now we cannot see anything. So let's add animate. And for the animate, we need to type opacity of 1 and Y of 0. So now if you reload this page, we can see that the animation is being displayed. Let's also add some more control. So let's tap transition. And here let's tap duration and let's set it to 0.7. Let's type delay and let's go back and reload. So this is how it looks. Let's also add an easing. So let's tap ease. Let's set it to ease in out. So this is how it looks. Now let's add some delay for each of these elements. So for the paragraph, let's change this into a motion.p. So here let's go ahead and tap initial and let's tap opacity of 0, Y of 12. Let's tap animate, opacity of 1, Y of 0. And let's also tap transition. Let's tap delay of 0.3. Let's see how it looks. Let's reload this page. So this is how it looks. Let's also change the duration. And let's tap duration of 0.8. And I think we can go ahead and delete these from here. And let's add it to this h1. So I'll just tap motion.h1 and let's add the attributes over here. And let's remove the motion from here. So now if you go back, it looks all right. Let's also change the duration a little bit. Let's change it to 7. Let's see how it looks. Let's also change the Y over here to 12. Okay, that looks all right. Right now, let's style the buttons. So here for this div, let's change this into a motion.dev. And let's tap initial. Initially, let's set the opacity to 0, Y of 12. Let's tap animate. Let's tap opacity of 1, Y of 0. And let's also type transition. Let's type duration of 0.7. Let's add a delay of 0.5. Let's see how it looks. Let's reload this page. And this is how it looks. I think we can decrease the delay a little bit. So let's go back. And let's set the delay to 0.45. So here we have a delay of 0.3. Let's set it to 0.4. Let's go back. Let's reload. And that looks all right. So with that, we have styled our hero section. Let's also take a look at the mobile version. So this is the mobile version and this also looks all right. In this video, we will design the next section, which is our program section over here. So it also has some animations. So if we reload this page and if I scroll down, we can see that this is how it looks. So we're going to design this in this video. All right, so here I have opened up my VS Code and the first thing we will do is we'll create a new component. So in the components folder, let's create a new file called programs.tsx. And for now, let's go ahead and type export default function programs. And for now, just return a div and let's type programs over here. Let's go back to our main page.tsx file and let's add the programs component over here. So let's tap programs and let's import it from components programs. So now if you go back to our website, here we can see programs is being displayed over here. Now the first thing we will do is just like we added the data of these nav items inside this constants file, let's add the data of the programs as well into this constants.ts file. So we can just create a constant called programs, and we'll set it equal to an array of objects. And in this, we need to have different objects for each of the programs. So here let's type title, and for the first one we have this title of strength training. So let's type that over here, and then we need to have the description. So let's copy and paste this description from here. And in the same way, we also need to have the image. Now for the image, I have already downloaded some images over here, and I have these images right here in the public folder. So here let's type image, and let's add the URL of the image. So for the first one, let's type strength.jpg. Now in the same way, we need to add the content of all these programs over here. So I'll just quickly do that, and then we'll continue with our code. Right, so here I have added all these details of the programs. Now let's go back to the programs.tsx file. And the first thing we will do is we'll change this div into a section. And here let's add a div, and let's add some classes over here. So let's type max width of 7XL, MX auto to bring it to the center, PX4 for the padding, and for larger screens let's type PX6 for padding left and right, and for even larger screens let's type PX8. And in this we need to add the heading and this paragraph. And this div, let's create another div for the heading and the paragraph. So let's create an h2 and let's type our programs. Let's create a paragraph, and let's copy and paste the text from here. And now if you go back to our website, this is how it looks. We have the heading and the paragraph. Now we need to style this. First of all, let's go back to our section, and here let's add some classes. So let's type class name, padding top and bottom of 20, and bg background. So now we can see we have this padding, and now let's style this div, and here let's type class name. Let's type text center and margin bottom of 16. So now we can see our text is centered. Now let's style the h2. So here let's type class name. Let's type text 4XL for larger text, and for medium or larger screens let's type text 5XL, and let's type font black for the font weight. Let's type font heading for the Oswald font, margin bottom of 4, and text foreground. So this is basically a color. Now if you go back to our website, we can see that our heading is styled correctly. Now the next thing we need to style is this paragraph. So here for the p tag, let's type class name. Let's type text XL, text muted foreground for the text color, max W to XL, which is the max width, and MX auto to bring it to the center. So this is how it looks. Or now we also need to add the animation for these headings and paragraphs. So for that, let's go ahead and change these into motion tags. So first of all, we need to import it. So let's type import asterisk as motion from motion-react client. And here for the h2, I'll just change this into motion.h2. And here let's add initial. And initially we'll set the opacity to 0 and y of 16. So it will come up from the bottom. Then let's go ahead and type animate. And here let's type opacity of 1 and y of 0. Let's also type transition, and let's set the duration to 0.6 and ease to ease out. And now if you go back and if I reload, we can see that we have this animation being displayed over here. But if you scroll up and if I reload this page, and if you scroll down after some time, we can see that the animation is not playing. So when we reload the page, the animation runs. So when we scroll down, we cannot see the animation again. So for that, we will use while in view instead of animate. So here I'll just type while in view. Now if you go ahead and reload this page, and if you scroll down after some time, we can see that the animation still plays. So now let's add the animation for this paragraph. Before that, let's go ahead and change this setting where every time we scroll down, the animation happens. So let's run the animation only one time. So let's type viewport, and here we need to type once true. And now if you scroll down, we have the animation, but if you scroll up and if you scroll down again, the animation doesn't happen. Right, now let's go ahead and copy these things from here, and let's add it to this paragraph. So let's change this into motion.p, and let's paste all the code over here. Let's make some changes. I'll just change the y to 12, and let's add a little bit of delay. So let's type delay. Let's set the delay to 0.1. Now if you go back and if I reload, we can see that this is how the animation works. Right, now let's add all these cards for different programs. So Let's go ahead and go outside this div. Let's create a comment. Let's tap cards and let's create a div. And for this div, let's add some classes. So let's tap grid, and grid calls 1 for smaller screens, and for medium or larger screens, let's tap grid calls of 2, and for even larger screens, let's tap grid calls of 4. And let's add a gap of 8 between each of the elements. And now we need to loop through all the programs. So here we can see that we have created this const called programs, and we are exporting it. So let's type curly braces programs, and let's import it from lib constants, and we need to map through all the items. So let's tap map, and for each individual item I'll just call it program, and let's also access the index. So let's go ahead and create an arrow function, and I'll just return a div. So I'll just add parentheses, and let's create a div. Let's actually change this into a motion.dev so that we can add animations. And in here we need to add the card, and for the card we will use the card element from ShadCN. So let's open the terminal, and here let's go ahead and type npx ShadCN at latest add, and we can just type card. And with that, the card component has been added to our project. So now we can simply go ahead and type card over here, and let's import it from UI card. And the first thing we need to have in the card is the image. So let's create a div, and in that let's add the image tag. So let's import image from next image, and let's set the source to the image that we have inside this constant. So we have image over here, so we can just type program.image, and then we need to add the width and the height. So I'll just have fill for the width and the height, and let's also add class name. Let's type object cover, and if you go back here, we can see we also have this hover effect. So when you hover over this, we can see that the scale of the image changes. So for that, let's go ahead and type transition transform duration of 500. Let's type group hover scale of 110. Now since we are using group hover over here, we can just go over here to the motion.dev, which is the parent division, and we can just type class name group. Let's also add cursor of pointer over here. Now for this div, let's go ahead and add some classes. So let's type class name relative overflow of hidden and rounded T LG, which will have rounded corners at the top. Let's set the width to full. Let's set the height to 60, and for medium or larger, let's type height of 56, and for larger screens, let's set the height to 40. And for the image, let's also add the alt. So for the alt, I'll just type program.title. So now if we go back to our website, we can see that we have all these images being displayed over here. Now I think the ShadCN card already has some padding added by default. So let's go back, and here for the card, let's add some classes. So let's type class name. Let's type padding of 0. And now we can see that we don't have the padding. So here let's also add transition for the shadow, and let's set the duration to 300. And when you hover over this, we need to add a shadow. So let's type shadow to Excel. And now we can see when we hover over this, we can see that the shadow is being displayed. Now the next thing we need to do is add the card content. So for that, we have card content inside ShadCN. So let's use that. So let's type card content. And this card content, let's go ahead and add an S3. And here we'll just type program title. And after that, we need to have a paragraph. And here we need to type program description. So now if we go back, we can see that all the content is displayed over here. Let's style this. Let's go back, and here for the S3, let's type class name, text Excel, font bold, font heading for the Oswald font. Let's type margin bottom of 3, text color to foreground, and let's type group hover. So when you hover over the group, which is this division right here, we'll just go ahead and set the text color to primary, and let's type transition colors. And now if you go back, and if I hover over this, we can see that the color changes. Let's also style the paragraph. So here let's type class name, text muted foreground, margin bottom of 4, and leading relaxed. Leading is basically the line height. So this is how it looks. Now let's also add the animation. So let's go back over here, and let's change the S3 into a motion S3. So let's type motion.s3, and let's type initial. Let's type opacity of 0, Y of 0, and let's type while in view. And here let's type opacity of 1, Y of 0, and let's type viewport, and let's display the animation just once. So let's type once true. And let's type transition. And here let's type duration of 0.5. Let's type ease. Let's set it to ease out. And let's also type delay. And let's set the delay to index, which we are getting from here. So let's type index times 0.2. So in this way, each of the elements inside the programs will have different delay. So each of them will have increasing amount of delays. So let's go ahead and save this. Let's go back and reload. Now we can see that the animation is working all right. I think the Y is not working correctly. So here for the Y, we need to change this to a different value. Let's type 8. So now we can see everything works all right. Now here we have this error which says that we need to have a unique key for the map. So let's go back, and here for the map, for the div, let's type key, and let's set the key to program.title. So this is a unique value. Let's also add the animation for the paragraph. So I'll just copy all of these from here. Let's paste it over here. First of all, let's change this into motion.p, and let's paste it over here. Let's change the value to Y of 6. And let's change the delay to 0.3. Let's see how it looks. Let's reload the page, and I think that looks all right. And then we also need to have this button. So for that, let's go back over here. Let's go below this paragraph, and let's create a div. Let's create a button in here. Let's import the button from UI button. So this is a ShadCN button, and let's type learn more, and here let's type variant. Let's set the variant to outline. And here we can see we have the button. Let's also add some classes. So let's type class name. Let's set the width to full, transition colors, duration of 300, and group hover. Let's type BG, and let's set it to primary. So this is the background color. So when you hover over the card, we need to change the color to the primary color. And let's also type group hover. Let's set the text color to primary foreground. Now let's go back to our website, and this is how it looks. Now we also need to add some padding at the bottom. So let's go to the card content, and here let's type class name. Let's type padding of 6. And now we can see we have the padding at the bottom. Now we don't want to have the padding at the top, so let's type padding top PT. Let's set it to 0. So this is how it looks. Now let's go back to our main container division, which is this division right here. Let's add some animations over here. So let's type initial. Let's set it to opacity 0, Y of 24. Let's type while in view, and here let's type opacity of 1, Y of 0, and let's type viewport. Let's type once true, and then let's type transition, and here let's type duration of 0.6, ease of ease out, and let's set the delay to index times 0.1. And now if we go back to our website, and if I reload, we can see that this is how the animation works. I think we can increase the delay a little bit. So let's type 0.2. Let's reload. So this is how it looks. Now when we hover over each of these cards, let's also increase the scale of the entire card. So here we can just type while hover, and let's type scale 1.02. Let's see how it looks. So we can see that the scaling is working correctly. Let's reload this page, and let's scroll down. And we can see now everything works all right. So with that, we have styled our program section. Now in this video, we will design the next section, which is this section over here called Why Choose Us. So let's get started. So here the first thing we will do is we'll create a component inside the components folder, and let's call it Why Choose Us.tsx. And as always, let's go ahead and type export default function Why Choose Us, and let's return a div for now, and let's type Why Choose Us. Let's go back over here to the page.tsx file, and let's import the component right here. So let's type Why Choose Us, and let's import it from components Why Choose Us. Let's go back to our website, and here we can see that the section is being displayed. Now let's go back to our programs component, and let's copy some of these from here, because if you go back to our original design, we can see that we have the same styling for the heading and this paragraph over here for the our programs, and also the why choose fit pro fitness sections. So let's go back and let's copy everything from here till the end of this div, and let's paste it over here. And we need to go ahead and close some of these over here. So let's go ahead and close this div over here, and let's also close the section. And now we need to import motion. So let's go ahead and type import asterisk as motion from motion/React client. And now if you go back to our website, and if you reload this and if you scroll down, we can see that everything is working all right. So now let's change the content. So we need to change the heading to why choose fit pro fitness. So let's copy this, and here let's go ahead and change this to the text. Now for fit pro, we need to have a different color. So it is basically the primary color. So let's create a span, and let's add this fit pro inside the span. And here let's add a class name. Let's type text primary. And if you go back, we can see that we have the correct color for the text. Let's also copy this paragraph from here, and let's paste it over here. So everything is working all right. Now here we can see we have all these features. So let's add these inside an array of objects. So let's go back over here, and I'll just add it right here. So let's go ahead and type const features. And in this, we need to have, first of all, the icon. So these are all icons from Lucide React. So we can just type the name of the icon. So let's type check circle. So we can just import it from Lucide React. And let's type title. Let's set the title to this one right here. So let's copy it and paste it right here. And then we have the description. Let's go ahead and copy and paste this and paste it right here. And then we need to add the other features. So the next one is this icon right here. It is called trending up. So let's type icon trending up, and let's import it from Lucide React. And let's set the title to this text right here. And let's add the description. All right, let's add the next feature. And for this, we have this icon right here. It is the calendar icon. So let's type icon calendar, and let's import it from Lucide React. Let's type title. Let's copy this title, and let's paste it over here. Then we have description. Let's copy this and paste it right here. And lastly, we have this feature right here, and we have this icon, and it is called users. So let's type icon users from Lucide React. And then we have title. Let's add this title. And then we have description. And let's copy and paste it right here. So with that, we have added all the features inside this array. And now let's go ahead and display all the features over here. So let's go outside this div, and let's create a comment. I'll just have features grid. And for the features, I'll just create a div over here, and let's add some classes over here. So let's type class name. Let's type grid, which is display of grid. Let's type grid calls 1, which is 1 column for smaller screens. And for medium and larger screens, let's type grid calls 2. And for large screens, let's type grid calls 4. And let's add a gap of 8. Right now, let's loop through all the features. So let's go ahead and type curly braces features dot map, and I'll just call each of the feature, and let's also access the index. And here we'll just go ahead and return motion.dev. So let's type motion.dev. Now, since this is a map, we need to add a key. So let's set the key to feature.title. So this is a unique value. And let's also add some animations. So let's type initial. Let's set it to opacity of 0, Y of 24, and while in view. And let's set it to opacity of 1, Y of 0. And let's type viewport. Here let's type once true, so that the animation is displayed only once. Let's also add transition. And here let's type duration of 0.6, ease of ease out. And we will set the delay to index times 0.12. So each of these items will have increasing amounts of delay. So if I reload this page, This is how it looks. So let's go back. Now when you hover over this, we also need to change the scale. So let's go ahead and type while hover, and let's set it to scale 1.03. And right now we cannot see anything because we are not displaying anything inside this motion.dev. So let's do that. So first of all, let's create a motion div inside here for the icon, and here let's type feature.icon. Let's set the class name to width of 8 and height of 8. So this will display the icon which we specified inside this array. So let's go back, and here we can see all the icons are being displayed. Now let's add some classes to the icons. So here let's type class name, width of 16, height of 16, rounded full for the circle, and let's set the background color to BG primary 20. So 20 is basically the opacity. So this is how it looks. Now we need to bring this icon to the center of this circle. So let's go ahead and type display of inline flex items center and justify center. And now when you hover over this, we need to change the color to this primary color. So let's go ahead and type group hover. So we need to add the hover effect when we hover over this whole group. So let's type group hover, and here we need to add a class name called group. Right here let's type group hover. So when we hover over this main div, we will have the styles added to this icon. So group hover BG primary, and by default the text color will be set to primary. And when you hover over this, let's type group hover. Let's set the text color to text primary foreground, and let's type transition for the colors. Let's type duration of 300. So now if you go back, this is how it looks. Let's also bring these icons to the center. So here let's type text center. So now the icons are in the center of the div. Now let's also add some animation to this. So here let's go ahead and type initial. Let's set it to scale of 0.9, opacity of 0. Let's type while in view, and here let's type scale of 1, opacity of 1. And then let's type viewport. Let's type once true, and then let's type transition, and here let's type duration of 0.5, ease, and let's set the ease to ease out, and here we need to change this to transition. And let's also add a delay of index times 0.18. So this will add increasing amounts of delay for each of these divs. So if I reload this page, this is how it looks. Alright, now let's add the heading. So here for the icon, let's add a margin bottom of 6, and after this div, let's go ahead and create motion.s3, and in this we'll just use the feature title, and below that we will have a motion.p, and here we will use feature.description. Right now let's add the classes over here. So let's type class name, let's type text Excel, font weight to bold, font to font heading, margin bottom of 4, and text color to foreground. So this is how it looks. Let's also add the animations. So let's type initial, let's type opacity of 0, y of 8, and let's type while in view, let's type opacity of 1, y of 0, and let's type viewport once true, transition, and let's type duration of 0.5, ease of ease out, and delay of index times 0.14. Let's reload this page, and this is how it looks. Right now let's style this paragraph. So here for the p tag, let's type class name, let's type text muted foreground for the text color, let's type bleeding relaxed for the line height. So this is how it looks. Let's also add some animations. So I'll just copy these animations from here. Let's paste it right here. Let's change some of these values. I'll just remove the y, and let's go back. Let's reload this page, and this is how it looks. And this is also completely responsive. So let's reduce the width of the browser window. This is how it will look on a tablet, and this is how it will look on a smartphone. So everything is looking all right. So with that, we have completed designing this why Choose Us section. Now in this video, we will design the next section, which is this testimonial section over here. So let's get started. So first of all, let's go to our source code, and this is how it looks. Let's go ahead and create a new component. So inside the components folder, let's create a new file called testimonials.tsx. And as always, let's type export default function testimonials. And let's go ahead and return a section. Let's type testimonials over here. Now let's go to our page.tsx file, and let's add the testimonials section right here. So let's tap testimonials. Let's import it from components testimonials. Now if you go back to our website, here we can see testimonials is being displayed over here. Now before going ahead with our code of the testimonials component, let's go ahead and add all the details of the testimonials inside the constants file. So here we can see we are adding all these details of the nav items and also the programs. So in the same way, let's go ahead and create a new const called testimonials. Let's set it equal to an array of objects, and let's also export this. So here I'll just type export. So here first of all, we need to add the name of the person, we need to add the story, and then we also need to add these details and also the image, and then we also need to add the rating. So let's go back and let's type name. Let's set the name to Sarah H, and then we need to add the story. Let's copy this from here and let's paste it over here. We'll just delete these double quotes from here, and then let's add the details, and here let's copy this and paste it over here. And then we need to add the image. So for the image, I already have this image called sarah.jpg in my public folder, so we can just type /sarah.jpg, and then we need to have the rating. So let's type rating, and here she has rated 5, so let's type 5 over here. And the same way, we need to add the details of these 3 different individuals. So I'll just quickly do that, and then we'll continue. Right, so here I have added all these details. We have 3 different testimonials over here. Now let's go to a testimonials.tsx file, and first of all, let's go ahead and get the title and the description from the other section. So let's go to the programs section, and I'll just copy all of this from here till here. So we have the heading and the subheading. Let's copy this and let's paste it over here inside the testimonials. And we need to close this div and also close the section. Now we need to import motion. So let's go ahead and type import asterisk as motion from motion/React client. All right, let's change the heading to success stories. And let's change this paragraph. So let's copy this and let's paste it right here. So now if you go back to our website, this is how it looks. Right, now we need to loop through all these testimonial details, and we need to display these cards. So let's go back. Let's go outside this div, and let's add a comment. I'll just type testimonials grid, and here let's go ahead and create a div. Now for this div, let's go ahead and add some classes. So let's type class name display of grid. Grid calls 1 for smaller screens, and for medium, let's type grid calls 3, and let's add a gap of 8. Right, now we need to loop through all these testimonials. So let's go ahead and add curly braces. Let's type testimonials, and let's import it from lib constants. Let's type .map, and for each of the testimonial, I'll just call it T, and let's also access the index. And here let's add a parenthesis so that we can directly return something. So here I'll just return a motion.dev. And since this is a map, let's go ahead and add a key over here. So let's type key is t.name, because name is unique. Now for the testimonial content, let's go ahead and use a card. So let's type card over here, and let's import it from UI card. So this is basically a ShadCN component, and in the card we need to have card content. So let's type card content. Let's import it from UI components. And here first of all, we need to have the image. So let's create a motion.dev, and in this we will add the image tag. So let's import image from next image, and this image should have a source. So for the source, let's type t.image, because in our constants file we can see that we have this image. And then we need to add an alt. So let's type alt equals, and let's set it to t.name, And let's also set the width and height to fill so that it will fill the entire width and height of the parent. And here for the container division, let's go ahead and add some classes. So let's type class name, relative, margin bottom of 6, height of 30, width of 24, and MX auto to bring it to the center horizontally. And here we can see all these images. Let's also set the object fit to cover so that we have the correct proportions. So here for the image, let's add some classes. So let's type class name, rounded full, object cover. Let's add a border of 4. Let's set the border color to primary 20 for the opacity. Now if you go back here, we can see this is how it looks. Now when you hover over this, we need to change the border color. So when you hover over the complete card, we need to change the color. So for that, let's go ahead and add a class over here. So for this main outer division, let's go ahead and add a class. Let's type class name, set it to group. And here let's go ahead and type group hover. And when you hover over the group, let's type border color to primary. Let's type transition colors. Let's type duration of 300. And now if you go back and if I hover over this, we can see that the color changes. Now here for the card also, let's add some classes. So here let's type class name. Let's type hover. When you hover over this, let's type shadow of 2XL and transition for the shadow and duration of 300. So now we can see we have the shadow being displayed. Now for the card content, let's go ahead and add some classes. So let's type class name. Let's add a padding of 8 and text center. And after this, we need to add these star ratings. But before that, let's add these other elements because they are simple to do. So let's go outside this motion.dev and let's type motion.block quote. So we're going to use a block quote for displaying the story. So here we can just simply type double quotes, and here let's type t.story. So now if you go back, here we can see that we have the story displayed over here with the double quotes. Let's also add some classes over here. So let's type class name, text LG for large text, font semi-bold for the font weight, and let's type font heading for the Oswald font. Let's type text color to foreground, margin bottom of 4. So this is how it looks. Right now let's add a paragraph. So let's go outside this block code. Let's type motion.p, and here we can simply go ahead and type t.details. So here we can see the paragraph is being displayed. Let's also add some classes over here. So let's type class name, text color to muted foreground, margin bottom of 4, leading relaxed for the line height. So this is how it looks. And then we also need to add the name of the person. So for that, we're going to use a site. So let's type motion.site, and here let's go ahead and type hyphen t.name. So here we can see the name is being displayed. Let's also add some classes. So let's type class name, font bold, text color to primary and italic. So this is how it looks. Right now let's add some basic animations. So here let's go ahead and type initial, and let's set the initial value to opacity 0, and let's type while in view, and here we'll just type opacity of 1. Let's type viewport, and here let's type once true so that the animation is displayed only once. Let's type transition, and let's set it to duration of 0.4. Let's type ease, and let's set it to ease out, and let's type delay, and let's set it to index times 0.2. So now if you go back and if I reload, this is how it looks. Let's add the animation for the other elements as well. So I'll just copy these from here, and let's add it to the paragraph. And here we can see we have the animation. Let's do it for the block quote as well. And for the block quote, we will also add some y value. So here let's type opacity 0 and y of 6, and here opacity 1 and y of 0. So this is how it looks. Let's also copy the same thing for the image. So here let's type initial of opacity 0, and let's also add a scale of 0.9, and here while in view let's type scale of 1 and 0.5 for the duration. and let's see how it looks. Let's reload this page. So everything looks all right. Right now let's add the rating stars. So let's go outside the image div, and here let's create a motion.dev, and at the top over here let's create a const called max stars. Let's set it to 5. Let's scroll down, and now here what we need to do is we need to type array dot from. So we need to create an array from this max stars over here. So we need to have an array of a length of 5. So let's use this max stars constants from here. So we can simply type length max stars, and then we need to type dot map, and in this map we're going to need the index. But here we can see that the index is on the second position in the arguments list. So for the first one, let's type underscore, and then let's type I for the index. We need to add all of this inside parentheses. And here let's go ahead and create an arrow function. Now here we need to return something. So let's type return, and let's return a star. So let's type star. Let's get it from Lucide React. Now if you go back to our website, here we can see we have these stars being displayed over here. Let's also address this issue of having a unique key for the map. So here for the star, let's type key. Let's set it to I, which is a unique value. And here we'll create a const called filled, and let's set it equal to I less than t dot rating. So what this will do is, if the rating is, for example, 4, then when we iterate through this array, and if you go to the 5th item, which is the 5th star, then this filled constant will be set to false. Or else, if the index is less than the t rating value, for example, if we have a rating of 4, and when we are mapping through this array, and if we reach the second element, then this filled constant will be true. So in this way we can add different styles for these ratings. So here we can see we have a rating of 4, and for the 5th star we have a different styling. So we can do that using this filled constant. So here let's go ahead and type class name, and here let's type curly braces. Here just type if we have the filled constant set to true, then we'll just go ahead and add this class width of 5, height of 5, text yellow 300, and let's add an else over here. So we can just type colon, and if it is not true, then we'll just type width of 5, height of 5, text color to neutral 300. Now if we go back, here we can see this is how it looks. Here we have just 4 stars, and we have a different color for the outline. If you go back to our constants, and for example if I change this value to 2, and if you go back, and here we can see that we have just 2 stars, so everything is working correctly. Let's go back to 5, and now here in the star let's also add fill, and here also we will add a conditional. So let's type if filled is true, then let's type current color, or else we'll just type none. So it will not have the filled color when the filled is false. So if you go back, this is how it looks. We can see that for this one we don't have the fill color. Right now we can go ahead and style the container of these stars. So here for the motion div, let's add some classes. So let's type class name, display of flex, justify center, margin bottom of 4, gap of 1, and this is how it looks. Let's also copy these values from here for the animation. Let's add it to this motion div. Let's remove the Y from here for the initial and while in view, and everything else is alright. So let's reload this page, and this is how it looks. Now let's go back to the main container division, which is this one right here. Let's add some animations over here. So I'll just paste it. Let's make some changes. Here for the Y, let's type 24, and for the duration I'll just type 0.6. Let's go back and let's reload this page. So this is how it looks. And when you hover over this, we'll also change the scale. So here let's type while hover. Let's set it to scale 1.03. Now in the while hover, let's also change the delay. So right now if we hover over this third element, we have the delay that we add over here in the transition. We have it applied for the while hover as well. So here in the while hover, let's type transition, and let's set it to duration 0.3, and let's type delay of 0. Let's go back. So now everything looks all right. So with that, we have completed designing our testimonial section. So let's go ahead and reload this page. Let's scroll down. So everything is working perfectly. Now in this video, we will design this plan section or the pricing section. So let's get started. So here I am in my source code. So let's go ahead and first of all create a new component called pricing. Let's type pricing.tsx. And as always, let's type export default function pricing. And let's go ahead and return a section. Let's type pricing over here. Let's go back to our page.tsx file, and here let's add the pricing component. So let's type pricing. Let's import it from components pricing. Now if you go back here, we can see we have the pricing text displayed over here. Now as we did for the other components like the testimonials and also the programs, let's go ahead and add all these details of the pricing to the constants file. So if you go back to our project, if you go to lib constants, we can see that we have added some of these details over here. We have nav items and also programs, and then we have testimonials. So now let's also add the details of the plans. So let's type export const. Let's call it plans, and let's set it equal to an array of objects. Now in this array, we need to have all these details over here. So first of all, we need to have the name. So let's type name, and we need to add the name of the plan. So it is basic. Then we need to have the price. So let's type price, and let's set the price to a number. Let's type 29, and then we have the period. So let's type period. Let's set it to month, and then we have the description. So let's copy this, and let's type description. Let's paste it over here, and then we need to have the features. So these are all the features. So let's type features, and let's add an array, and in the array we will add all the features. So first of all, we have gym access. Let's copy this and paste it over here, and let's add a comma. Let's add the other features. So let's copy this and paste it over here, and let's do the same thing for all the other features. So with that, we have added all the features, and then we need to add this text. So let's type CTA, and we should have the text called join now. And then lastly, we will have one more field called popular. So if it is popular, we will have a different styling. So for that, let's go ahead and type popular. Let's set it to false for this plan. And the same way, we need to add all the other plans. So we have two more plans over here. This one is popular, and we have other details over here. So I'll just go ahead and quickly add those plans over here, and then we'll continue. So here I have added all these plans and all the details. Now let's go to our pricing component, and let's start creating this. The first thing we will do is we'll copy the heading from the other section. So let's copy this section over here. So this is the Why Choose Us section. So I'll just copy the heading and the subheading because we have the same styling. So let's copy this, and let's copy it till here, and let's paste it inside the pricing component. And we need to close this div and also the section. And we also need to import motion. So let's type import asterisk as motion from motion / React client. And let's go ahead and change the text. So here we have affordable plans for everyone. So I'll just type affordable over here, and I'll just add plans inside the red text. And let's add for everyone over here. And let's go and copy this paragraph, and let's add it right here. And if you go back to our website, here we can see that we have the correct heading for our section. Right now, let's go ahead and loop through all the plans, and let's display the plans over here. So let's go outside this div. Let's create a comment. I'll just type plans, and here let's create a div. Let's add some classes. So let's type class name, display of grid. Grid calls to 1 for smaller screens, and for medium and larger, let's type grid calls to 3. Let's add a gap of 8, and let's go ahead and type curly braces plans. So let's import it from lib constants, and let's type dot map, and for each of the plan, I'll just call it plan. And let's also access the index, and here just return a motion.dev. So let's type motion.dev, and in this, let's add the key. So let's type key equals plan.name. So here we can see we have all these details. We have the name, which is a unique value. So we will add that as the key. Now for each of these plans, we will use the card inside ShadCN. So let's type card and let's import it from UI card. And in this card, we will have a card header. So this also comes with the ShadCN component. And the card header, we need to have an S3, and here we need to add the plan.name. So if you go back, here we can see that the names of all these plans are displayed over here. And let's also add a paragraph. And here let's add plan.description. And then let's add the price. So for the price, we need to have the price over here. Before that, we need to have a dollar symbol. And on the right side, we need to have the period with this /. So let's go back and let's type div. And this div, we will have a span. And here let's type dollar symbol, curly braces, plan.price. So here we can see the price is being displayed. And let's create another span over here. And here let's type dollar symbol, curly braces. And here let's type /, plan.period. So now we can see that the pricing is displayed correctly. And after that, let's use the card content for all these features. So let's type card content. And in this, we'll create a UL. And in the UL, we will display all these features as list items. So let's type curly braces. Let's type plan.features. And we will map through all the features. So let's type map. So here we can see we have this features array. So we are accessing this. So let's type feature for each of the individual features. And let's just return an li. And for the key, I'll just type feature. And here I'll just type feature. So this will display the feature. So if you go back, here we can see all the features are displayed over here. And then we need to have this button. So let's create a button component. So let's import it from UI button. And here let's add the text plan.cta. So here we can see we have this join now button. Now for the popular button, we need to have this color, and for all the other buttons, we need to have this black color. So we will do that later. Before that, let's add this last thing over here, which is this paragraph. So let's copy this. Let's go back over here and let's go outside this div, which contains all the plans. And here let's create a motion.dev. And here let's create a paragraph. Let's paste the text over here. And now if you go back, here we can see we have the text displayed. So with that, we have added all the content. Now let's go ahead and add the styles. So let's go back and let's start with the heading, which is the S3. So let's type class name. Let's type text to Excel, font bold, font heading for the Oswald font, and text color to foreground, margin bottom of 2. So this is the heading. Now here we can see we also have this different styling for the most popular plan. So we will add the most popular tag over here before the heading. So let's go outside this card header, and inside the card, I'll just go ahead and create curly braces, and let's type plan.popular. So we'll check whether plan is popular, and let's type ampersand. And if this plan is popular, then only will this code be executed. Now for displaying this, we will use a badge inside ShadCN. So let's go ahead and install it. So I'll just type npx ShadCN at latest add badge. And here we can see that the badge was added. So let's go back over here and let's use the badge. So let's type badge and let's import it from UI badge. Here let's go ahead and type most popular. Let's add some styles over here as well. So let's type class name, and we will set it to position of absolute. And for that, let's set the position of the main division, which is this division, to relative. So here I'll just type class name relative, and here for this badge, let's type absolute. Let's type minus top 3 for the position of the top, and for the left, let's type left half, and to bring it to the exact center, let's type translate x half, and let's set the color to BG primary. Let's set the text color to primary foreground. Let's type padding left and right of 6, padding top and bottom of 1. So this is how it looks. Now when the plan is popular, we also need to add a red border. So this is how it looks. For that, let's go ahead and go to the card, and for the card, let's add class name, and here let's add curly braces. Let's type backticks, and here let's type dollar symbol curly braces plan.popular. So if the plan is popular, let's add a question mark. So if the plan is popular, then we'll just go ahead and type border color to primary and border width to 2, and let's also type ring 1. So here we can see these are the styles that it adds, and let's also type ring primary 20 for the opacity. And here let's add colon and let's type blank. So when the plan is not popular, we won't add this border. So now if you go back, here we can see we have this border for the popular plan, and we also have this badge. Now all this text should be centered. So let's go to the card header. So this is the card header. Let's type class name and let's set it to text center and padding of 8 and padding bottom of 0. Right now let's add the styles for the paragraph. So here let's type class name, text color to muted foreground, margin bottom of 4, and then let's style this pricing. So here let's type for the span, class name, text 5XL, font black for the font weight, font heading, and text foreground for the color. And for this text, which is this span right here, so let's type class name, text to muted foreground, margin left of 1. Right now let's add the styles for these features. So here inside the card content we have the UL. So let's type class name for the UL. Let's type space Y4 for the spacing between the elements. Let's type margin bottom of 8. And we need to add a check icon before each of these features. So here inside the list item before the feature, let's go ahead and type check. Let's import it from Lucide React. And here let's type class name, width of 5, height of 5, margin right of 3, text green 500. And we'll just add the features inside a span. And for the span, let's add some classes. So let's type class name, text color to muted foreground. Now we need to have the icon and the text one next to the other. So for the li, let's type class name, display of flex items center. Right now let's style the button. So for the popular button, we need to have this red color, and for all the other buttons, we need to have the default black color. So let's go back, and here for the button, let's type class name and let's add curly braces for conditional styling. And here let's type backticks. Let's type width of full, padding top and bottom of 3, text to large, font semi bold, transition of colors, and duration of 300 for the transition. And then let's type $symbol curly braces, plan.popular. So if the plan is popular, then we'll just go ahead and type BG primary. When you hover over this, we'll just type BG primary 90 for the opacity. And let's type text primary foreground. And let's add a colon for the else. And here let's type BG secondary. And when you hover over this, let's type BG primary. Let's type text primary foreground. So now if you go back, here we can see that we have different color for the popular plan and we have other color for the other buttons, but we cannot see the text of the button, and the color is also not correct. So for that, let's go back to our globals.css file, and here we need to make some changes to these variables. So here we are using the secondary color. So let's change the color of the secondary. So here in the root, here we have the secondary color. So let's change the value of this. Let's type 0.2103, 0.0318, and 264.7. So this is the secondary color. Let's scroll down and let's take a look at the dark version. So here we have the dark mode, and I think this color is fine. So now let's go back, and here we can see now we have the correct color for the buttons. Right now let's bring this text to the center. So let's go back, and here for this motion.dev, let's add some classes. So let's type class name, text center, margin top of 12. So this is how it looks. And for the color of the text, I'll just type class name, text muted foreground. Right now the last thing we need to do is add the animation. So let's scroll up and let's copy this from here for the animation. Let's scroll down and let's add it to this motion.dev, and let's make some changes. So opacity 0, let's set the Y to 24, let's set the scale to 0.95, and while in view opacity 0, Y 0, and scale 1. And for the transition, let's set it to 0.6 for the duration, ease out, and I think everything looks alright. For the delay, I'll just multiply the value of this index. So let's tap 0.1 times I. So now if you go back, if you reload this page, this is how the animation looks. Let's change the scale to 0.98. Let's see how it looks. I think that looks alright. Let's add the animation for this text as well. So let's scroll down and let's paste it over here. let's remove the y value from here and also in the while in view. Everything else should be alright. Let's save this, let's reload, and everything looks alright. So with that, we have styled our pricing section of our website, and let's check out whether this is responsive. So let's reduce the width of the browser window, and on smaller screens, this is how it looks. So everything is displayed correctly. Alright, so here I'm in my source code, and let's go to the components folder and let's create a new file called footer.tsx. And as always, let's type export default function footer, and let's return a footer, and let's type footer over here. And let's go back to our page.tsx file, and let's add the footer right here. So let's type footer. And if you go back to our website, here we can see that footer is being displayed. Now let's go back and let's go to the footer component. Now for this footer tag, let's add some classes. So let's type class name. Let's set the background to secondary, and let's type text neutral 100. So this is the text color. Let's type transition colors, and let's type duration of 300. Now in this, let's create a div. And for this div, let's add some classes. So let's type class name. Let's add a max width of 7 XL. Let's type MX auto to bring everything to the center horizontally. Let's type padding left and right of 4. And for medium screens, let's type padding left and right of 6. And for larger screens, let's type padding left and right of 8. And let's type padding top and bottom of 16. So this is how it looks. Now if we go back to our footer, we can see that we have 3 different sections over here. So let's create a div, and in this div, let's add some classes. So let's type class name. Let's set the display to grid, and grid calls 1 for smaller screens, and for tablet or larger screens, let's type grid calls 4, and let's add a gap of 8. Now for the tablet versions and larger screens, we are setting the grid calls to 4 because here we can see that this column over here should span 2 columns, and this is one column and this is another column. So that's why we have set the grid columns to 4. Right now, the first thing we need to do is add this section over here. So let's add a comment. I'll just type brand, and here let's create a div. In this, let's create an S3, and let's type fit pro fitness. Let's add some classes over here. So let's type class name call span 1. So this is for the smaller screens. And for medium or larger, let's type call span 2. So this will span 2 columns. So here we can see this is the fit pro fitness text, and it spans 2 columns. So if you just add a background color over here, so let's type background red of 500. Here we can see that it spans till here, and then we have these 2 columns over here. All right, let's remove this, and let's add some classes to this S3. So let's type class name text 3XL for larger text, font black for the font weight, and font heading for the Oswald font, text primary for the text color, and margin bottom of 4. Alright, now let's add the paragraph. So I'll just copy this from here, and let's go back, and let's create a p tag. Let's paste the text over here. Let's add some classes. So let's type class name, margin bottom of 6, leading relaxed for the line height, and max width of MD. So here we have the paragraph. And after that, we need to have these icons over here. So for that, let's go back, and here let's go outside the paragraph. Let's create a div, and let's add link tags over here. So let's tap link, and let's import it from next link. And in this, let's go ahead and add the logo. So let's tap Instagram, and let's import it from Lucide React. And let's go ahead and add class name of width 5 and height 5. And for the link, let's add an href. And for now, I'll just type hash. Later, you can add the link of your social media pages over here. So now if we go back here, we can see that we have the icon displayed over here. Now for the link also, let's add some classes. So let's type class name, and let's type width of 10, height of 10, BG of secondary 40 for the opacity, rounded full for rounded corners. And let's set the display to flex items center, and justify center so that it is centered vertically and horizontally. And when you hover over this, we need to set the BG to primary. And let's tap transition, colors, duration of 300. So now if you go back, and if I hover over this, we can see that this is how it looks. So with that, we have added the transition. Now let's go ahead and copy and paste this 2 more times. And for the second one, let's type YouTube. And for the third one, let's type Facebook. So now we can see we have these 3 icons. Now we need to position them one next to the other. So for that, let's go to the container div. Let's add some classes. Let's type display of flex and let's type space x4. So this is how it looks. Alright, now let's create the other section, which is the quick links section. So let's go back and let's go outside this div. I think it's this div right here. So let's go outside here. Let's create a comment. I'll just type quick links. And let's create a div, and in that we will have an h4, and here let's type quick links. And let's add some classes. So let's type class name. Let's set the text to large, font to bold, font family to heading, and margin bottom of 4. Right now let's create a UL for the quick links. And for the UL, let's add some classes. So let's type class name space y of 2. So this is the vertical spacing. And we'll just create an array, and we'll just loop through the array and display the links. So we can go ahead and simply create the array right here. So I'll just create an array. Let's type home. Then we have about. Then we have programs. Then pricing. Then contact. And here let's type dot map. And for each of the links, I'll just call it link. And here I'll just go ahead and return an li. And here just type link. Right now let's add some classes over here. And before that, let's add a key, because this is a map. So we'll set the key to link because it is also a unique value. And let's add the link inside a link element. So let's type link over here. And let's add it right here. And for the href, we'll just type hash for now. And let's add some classes. So let's type class name, hover, text primary, transition of colors, and duration of 300. So now if you go back, this is how it looks. We can see that we also have the hover effects working. Right now we need to add the next section, which is the contact info. So let's go back over here and let's go outside this div. Let's create another comment. I'll just type contact info. Let's create a div, and in this let's create an h4. Let's type contact info. Let's add some classes. So let's type class name, text LG, font bold, font heading, margin bottom of 4. And let's go ahead and create a div over here. And in this div, let's create a paragraph. Let's type strong for a bold text, and let's type phone over here. And let's add a line break, and let's type the phone number over here. I'll just type some random number. And then let's create another paragraph, and let's type strong. Here let's type email, and let's type BR for a line break, and let's type info at fitprofitness.example, and let's type P strong, and then we need to have the location. So let's type location, and here let's type BR, and let's type 123 Fitness Avenue, and let's also add a line break over here, and let's type Healthy City HC 12345. So here we can see this is the contact info. Let's also add some spacing between these info. So let's go over here to the main division, and let's type class name. Let's type space y of 3. So now it looks all right. And now the last thing we need to add is this text over here. So I'll just copy this. Let's go back and let's go outside this div right here. And here let's create another div. Let's paste the text inside a paragraph. Let's add some classes over here. So let's type class name, border top, border color to secondary 40, and let's type padding top of 12. Let's also bring it to the center, text center. Let's also set the color to text neutral 400. So this is how it looks. Let's increase the padding top a little bit. So let's type 18 or let's type 20. So this is how it looks. And with that, we have designed our footer. Let's take a look at the mobile version. And this is how it looks on a smaller screen. So everything is working all right. Now, since we are using ShadCN, we can just go to docs and we can go to dark mode and then just select Next.js. And here we have to install this package called Next Themes. So let's copy this. Let's go ahead and paste the command and press enter. And with that, our Next Themes was installed. Now let's go back and let's see what's the next step. So if you scroll down, we need to create a theme provider. So let's copy this code. Let's go back over here to the components and let's create a new file called themeprovider.tsx and let's paste it over here. And the next thing we need to do is we need to add the theme provider to the layout.tsx file. So let's go to the layout.tsx file and here inside the body, let's go ahead and add the theme provider. So I'll just type theme provider. Let's import it from components theme provider and let's add the children inside this theme provider. Now we need to add some attributes over here. So I'll just copy these attributes and I'll just paste it over here. And we also need to add suppress hydration warning to the HTML. So let's copy this and paste it over here. So with that, we have added the theme provider to the layout.tsx file. Now the next thing we need to do is we need to create this toggle button. So for that, let's go back over here and let's go to the components folder. Let's create a new file called ThemeToggle.tsx and let's tap export default function ThemeToggle and let's return a button and let's import it from UI button. And in this button, we need to display one of these icons. So if the theme is right now the light theme, then we need to display this moon icon. And if the theme is dark theme, then we need to display this sun icon. So for that, we need to access the use theme from the next themes that we just installed. So for that, we need to type const and we need to get theme and set theme from use theme. Now, since we are using use theme, we need to change this component into a client component. So let's type use client over here at the top. And then here we need to type curly braces. If theme is equal to dark, then we'll just go ahead and display the sun icon. So for the sun icon, we can just type sun and we can just import it from Lucide React. And here we'll just add some classes. So let's type class name, h4 and w4 for the width and the height. And then here let's add a colon. So this is where the theme is not dark. So here we'll just go ahead and type moon. Let's import it from Lucide React. And here let's type class name. Let's set the h to 4 and the width to 4 as well. And now let's add this theme toggle to our Navbar. So let's go to the Navbar component. And here we can see we have this join nav button. So we will add the theme toggle button just before this join nav button. So let's type theme toggle. Let's go back to our website and now we can see we have this button being displayed over here. Now let's change the styling of this button. So let's go back and here in the theme toggle component, let's add some classes to this button. So first of all, let's type variant. Let's set it to ghost. So this is the button. And let's also add an on click. So when we click on this button, we need to change the theme. So here let's tap on click. And here let's go ahead and create an arrow function. Let's type set theme. So here we need to type if theme equals dark, then we'll just go ahead and set it to light, or else we'll just set it to dark. So this will toggle the theme. Let's go back to our website and let's see whether it works. So let's click on this button. And now we can see that we have this dark theme and also this icon has changed. And if I click on this button once again, we can see that the theme has changed to light theme. Right now let's scroll down and let's see whether we have any problems in the dark theme. So everything looks all right over here. So when you hover over this, we can see that the color of this text is not correct. We need to change that. So let's scroll down. Let's see whether we have any other problems. Now for this pricing section, we need to change the color of this text over here. Let's scroll down and everything else looks all right. So let's make these changes and we'll also slightly change the background color of these sections over here. So for example, here for the program section, we'll slightly change the background color. So if you go back to our programs component, here we can see that the background is set to BG background. Here I'll just change this to foreground, and let's set the opacity to, let's try 4. Now if you go back, we can see that we have this slightly dark gray color for this section, and if you scroll down, we have this separation over here. So this looks alright. Let's scroll down and let's do the same thing for the other section. So let's do it for this testimonial section so that we have some separation over here. Let's go back to the testimonials component, and here let's change the color to foreground 4. So this is how it looks. Let's change to the light mode, and here also it looks alright. Now here when we hover over these program cards, we can see that the color of the text changes to a dark color. Let's go back to our code and let's see what's the problem. So here let's scroll down to the button. Now this is the button. So for the group hover, we can see that we are setting the color of the text to text primary foreground. Now here what we will do is we will also add dark, and when we are on the dark mode, we'll just tap group hover. Let's tap BG primary for this as well. Let's see if this works. Let's go back, and now we can see that it works alright. Right now let's scroll down, and this section works alright. We don't have any problems. Now for this testimonial section also, everything is looking alright. Now for this plan section, we need to change the background color of these buttons. Now in the light mode, we can see that we have this dark color for the button and the text is white. Now for the dark mode, we don't have the white text color displayed. So let's go back. Let's go to the testimonials section. So what we will do is in the dark mode also, we need to have this same dark color for the button background. So let's go back over here to the pricing component, and here we'll just simply add, if we have the dark mode, then we'll just change the color to text foreground. So now we can see we have the correct color. So everything is working all right. Now let's scroll down, and this is the footer. So let's go back to the footer component, and this is the BG color for the light mode. Let's add a BG color for the dark mode as well. So let's tap dark. Let's tap BG secondary. Let's tap 20 for the opacity. So this is the dark mode footer background color. So everything is working all right. And we don't have any problems in the styling for the dark mode. So with that, we have completed adding the functionality of the dark mode to our website. Let's also take a look at the mobile version. So this is how the smartphone version looks, and everything is looking all right. Now in this video, we will add the mobile navigation. So if you go to the mobile version, here we can see that we have this menu icon, and if I click on that, we need to display these menu items over here, and it is also in the dark mode. And when we click on this close icon, it should close. So we're going to design this in this video. Now before going ahead with our mobile navigation, we can see that we have this error over here, and if I click on this, it is some hydration failed error. So for that, what we need to do is we need to go to the ThemeToggle component. So this is the ThemeToggle component, and here we need to use a use effect. And what we need to do is we need to display the theme toggle button only when everything has loaded, so that we don't have the confusion in the browser. Now here what is happening is that the server is sending a different HTML and the client has a different HTML, so they don't match. So for that, we need to add a use effect over here. So let's go ahead and type use effect, and we'll just import it from React. And in this, let's go ahead and create an arrow function. And for the second argument, I'll just add empty array, and here we'll also create a state. So let's type const, let's call it mounted, set mounted for the setter function, and let's type use state over here, and let's also import it from React. And by default, we'll set the state to false. And here what we need to do is we need to type set mounted to true, and then here we'll just add a simple if condition, and we'll just type if not mounted, then we'll just return null. So what we are doing over here is that we are not displaying this toggle button unless the component has loaded. So if you go back to our website, and if I reload this page, here we can see that now we don't have any errors. I'll just reload it once again. So everything is working all right. Right now, let's go ahead and design the mobile navigation. So for the mobile navigation, let's go ahead and go to the components folder. Let's create a new file called mobile navigation.tsx. And here let's tap export default function mobile navigation, and here let's return a div for now, and let's tap mobile navigation. Right now let's go to the Navbar component, and let's add the mobile navigation to the Navbar component. So here we can see we have this theme toggle button, and then we have this join now button over here. So let's go outside this button and let's create a comment. I'll just tap mobile menu button, and here just create a div, and here let's add a class name called MD hidden. So it'll be hidden on medium to larger screens, and here let's tap mobile navigation. So now if we go back to our website, and if I decrease the width of the browser window, here we can see we have the mobile navigation being displayed over here. Right now let's go back to our mobile navigation component. Now here first of all we need to have this mobile menu icon, and also we need to have this theme toggle button. So here let's go ahead and add the theme toggle button over here. So let's tap theme toggle. Let's import it from the same folder, and here we can see we have the theme toggle button and it is working all right. Now below this let's go ahead and add a button, and in this button we need to display different icons based on whether we have opened the menu or not. So by default we need to have this menu icon, and if the menu is open then we need to have this close icon. So for that let's go ahead and create a state over here, and let's call it is open. So let's tap is open, let's tap set is open, and here let's tap use state, and let's import it from React. By default we'll set it to false. And now we can see we are getting this error because we are using use state, and we need to turn this component into a client component. So let's tap use client over here at the top, and now the error is gone. And now here let's type curly braces, let's tap is open. So if the menu is open, then we'll just display the close icon. So we can just use the X icon from Lucide React, and let's add some class names. So let's tap class name, width of 5 and height of 5. And let's add an else over here, and if the menu is not open then let's use the menu icon from Lucide React. And here let's add some class names. So let's tap class name equals width of 5 and height of 5. And for the button let's also set the variant to ghost. Now when we click on this button we need to change the state to true or false. So let's go ahead and type on click, and here let's type set is open. Let's set it to the opposite of is open. So what this will do is, if right now the state is set to true, then it will set it to false, or else it will set it to true. So now let's click on this button, and we can see that the state is working correctly. We have the correct icons displayed over here. Alright, now the next thing we will do is we will design this mobile menu items over here. So for that let's create another div over here, but we can just return a single element from a component. So what we will do is we will use a React fragment. So for that we can just type this code right here, and let's cut the ending tag and paste it right here. So now we can add two divs over here. Now here we will display this div only if the state is set to is open. So let's tap is open &&. So whatever we add over here will only be displayed when the is open state is set to true. So let's tap div, and let's tap class name, and here we'll use curly braces and backticks so that we can add conditional classes. So let's tap fixed for the position to be fixed at the top. Let's tap inset 0 so that it fills up the whole screen. Let's set the z index to 40, and for medium or larger let's tap hidden. And now let's go ahead and type $symbol curly braces. Here let's tap is open. So if it is open then we'll just type opacity 100, and if it is not open then we'll just type opacity of 0 and pointer events to none. So now here in this div let's go ahead and create a new div, and we need to map through all the nav items. So we have already created this constant. So here we can see we have this constant called nav items inside the constants.ts file. So let's use this. So let's tap curly braces nav items, and let's import it from lib constants. Let's tap dot map, and for each of the item I'll just call it item, and let's return a link. Let's import the link from next link, and for the link let's add a key, and let's set the key to item.name, and let's also set the href to item.href, and here let's tap item.name. And now if we click on this menu icon we can see that these menu items are displayed over here. Now let's also style this. So we need to bring this down a little bit. So let's go ahead and here in the container div, let's set the top to 16 and let's add some styles over here. So for this div, let's go ahead and type class name, padding left and right of 2, padding top of 2, padding bottom of 3, space Y of 1. And for smaller screens, which is a smartphone, let's type padding left and right of 3, BG of background, and border T for the top border, and let's type border color to border. And for the dark versions, let's type border to secondary 40 opacity. And now if we go back to our website and if I click on this menu icon, we can see that the menu items are displayed over here. Now let's add some styling to this as well. So here for the link, let's add some classes. So let's type class name, let's type text color to foreground. And when you hover over this, we need to type text primary for the color. And let's set the display to block, padding left and right of 3, padding top and bottom of 2, font weight to medium. And this is how it looks. And in the end, let's also add the join nav button. So let's go outside here and let's create a div. Let's type button and here let's type join nav. Let's add some classes to the div. So let's type class name, padding left and right of 3, padding top and bottom of 2, and here we have the join now button. So I think this looks all right. Or we can also make it full width. So let's type class name, width of full. So this is how it looks. Let's set the font to semi bold. Now let's take a look at the dark version. So let's click on this dark mode button and everything is looking all right. So with that, we have completed creating the mobile navigation menu of our website. Let's also add a little bit of shadow for this container division. So here let's type shadow MD. Let's remove the inset and let's type left 0 and right 0. So now we can see we have the shadow displayed over here at the bottom. Let's see shadow of LG and this is how it looks. Now we're going to use Vercel.com to deploy our website. And they also have a free plan, so you can just go to Vercel.com and create a free account. You can also sign up with your GitHub account, and after you log in, you will find this page right here. Now here we can deploy our website for free. Now for deploying our Next.js website on Vercel, we need to first of all create a GitHub repository. So just go to github.com, and if you don't have a GitHub account, you need to first of all create a GitHub account. And after that, just log into github.com, and you have to go ahead and create a new repository. So just click on this plus icon and then click on new repository, and let's name our repository. So I'll just type fitness. Let's see the name. It is Fit Pro Fitness. So I'll just name it Fit Pro Fitness. And then you can add a description and also set the visibility to public or private. I'll just keep it as public, and let's go ahead and click on create a repository. Now here we can see that our repository was created, but we don't have anything inside here. So we need to run these commands. Now if you're not able to run these commands, you can just first of all go ahead and download this Git app from here. So just download and install it. And once you do that, you can just go ahead and run these commands. So the first thing you need to do is git init. So let's go back to our website and let's type git init. And with that, we have initialized our new repository. And the next thing we need to do is we need to add all the files. So here we can see that they are adding the readme.md file, but we need to add all the files. So let's go back over here and let's type git add dot. So this will add all the files. And the next thing we need to do is we need to run all these other commands. So I'll just copy all of these and let's paste the commands over here, and let's press enter. And now we can see that our code has been pushed to GitHub. So let's go back to our GitHub and let's reload this page. And now we can see all the code is displayed over here. Now we can simply go ahead and add this to Vercel to deploy it. But before that, let's go ahead and build our project and let's see whether we have any errors. So I'll just clear it and let's type npm run build and press enter. And here we can see we have these two errors in our code. So let's open this. And here we can see we have this double quotes. We need to change it with ampersand quote semicolon. So let's do that. Let's type ampersand quote semicolon. Let's do the same over here. and let's save this. Now let's go ahead and type npm run build once again. And now we can see that our project was successfully built. Now let's go ahead and update this code into our GitHub. So we can just go ahead and type git add dot, and let's type git commit, and let's go ahead and change first commit to fixed build errors. And we can just go ahead and delete all of this. We'll just need git push. So I'll just delete all of this. So whenever you make any changes, you can just go ahead and git add, and then you can just type git commit and add a message, and then you can just go ahead and type git push. So let's press enter. And with that, our changes have been pushed to GitHub. So let's go back to GitHub and reload. And now we can see there are 2 commits. And if I open this, we can see that we have fixed build errors over here. Now let's go to our Vercel account and let's click on add new. Let's go to project, and here we need to install GitHub. So let's click on install. Let's continue with our GitHub account, and here we need to install Vercel to our GitHub account. So let's install for select repositories. So let's click on only select repositories, and here just select Fit Pro Fitness, and let's go ahead and click on install. And I'll just go ahead and log into my GitHub account. And now we can see that we have this GitHub account displayed over here. Let's click on continue, and let's continue with our GitHub account. And here we can see our repository is being displayed. So let's click on import, and let's leave all these settings as it is. And here we can see that it has already detected that it is a Next.js project. And let's click on deploy, and here we can see that deployment has started, and these are the build logs. So if I click on this, we'll be able to see all the logs. And now we can see it says congratulations, our website was deployed. So let's click on continue to dashboard, and this is our URL. So if I click on this, and here we can see our website is being displayed. So let's scroll down, and everything is working all right. Let's take a look at the light mode, and this is the light mode. Let's also take a look at the mobile version, and this is how it looks. So we don't have any problems. So with that, we have deployed our Next.js website on Vercel for free. Now if you want to make any changes in this website, you can just go over here to your source code and make the changes you need. And after that, you can just go ahead and run the commands git add, git commit, and git push. And once you push to GitHub, another deployment process will automatically start over here in Vercel, and the changes will be automatically displayed on your website. Now you can also go over here to domains and change the domain name. So let's click on edit. So this is our domain right now. So we can just go ahead and change this to fitprofitness.vercel.app. Let's click on save, and I'll just click on save. And here we can see it says fitprofitness is already assigned. So let's go back and add official over here. Let's click on save. And now we can see that we have this URL. So if I open this, we can see that everything is working all right. You can also add your custom domain over here. So that's basically how you can deploy your Next.js website for free on Vercel. So that's basically it for this video. If you have any doubts, you can ask in the comments below. And if you like this video, please click on the like button and subscribe to this channel to get the latest video updates. Thanks a lot for watching. Have a nice day.